Test review, unit 9.2. Solve each of the following. Show all your work. Okay, so on this first one, our goal is to get our radical alone. That's our first step in our notes, is to get your radical alone. So I need to get that alone on the left side of the equal sign, meaning I need to move this x. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and now my radical is alone. So I have the square root of x plus 1 equals 5 minus x. I know that's not in order, but we'll worry about order here in a second. So once I get my radical alone, I have to get rid of the radical, and the way you cancel a square root is by squaring it. So what I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. So square root cancels the squared, and I get x plus 1 equals, well, this needs to be double distributed. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times negative x is negative 5x minus 5x. Now 2 negatives makes a positive, so plus x squared. Now I'm going to put it back in order, though. What should go first? The x squared. Now, can't these middle two combine? And what do they give me? Negative 10x, and this is a positive 25. Once I get to this point, I realize I have an x squared, and I can't just solve for x. I'm going to have to snowflake. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the left side, which is smaller, cancel so we can snowflake it. It has to equal 0 on one side. Now, the reason you don't want to move this side is because you don't want a negative x squared. While it's possible to still solve with a negative x squared, it really makes it a little more confusing, and it's just not worth it. So we're going to do minus x. That cancels. And I'm also going to do minus 1. And that cancels. Now, everything on the left canceled. I have 0 equals x squared. Now, this is like 1x, so this gives me negative 11x plus 24. And now I'm going to snowflake. So A is 1, B is negative 11, and C is 24. So A is 1, so 1x, 1x. A times C is 24. B is negative 11. So what I want you to realize is when the top is positive and the bottom's negative, I'm going to have a double negative. And I believe it's 8 and 3. 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, so negative 8, negative 3. So I know my factors are x minus 8 and x minus 3. And I'm going to go ahead and just set those equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to add 8, and I get x equals 8. I'm going to add 3, and I get x equals 3. So this is where our handy-dandy calculator comes into play. And I'm going to plug it into the original. So I want you to realize there's an x. Well, I'm going to start with my first x, which is 8, plus the square root of 8 plus 1. Okay, and that should equal 5, which it did not. So that is not a solution. So let's try the 3. I get 3 plus square root of 3 plus 1, and I get 5. Therefore, 3 is a solution. So remember, we're going to write our solution in fancy brackets and our non-solution, our extraneous solution, in parentheses. So there's my solution. Okay. Now, number 2. Y'all, how do you get rid of something squared? My radical is already alone. So the way I get rid of, sorry, not something squared, something square root, we square both sides. Square root cancels squared, and I get x equals, what's the square root of 9? Or what's 9 squared? 81. Then you can check it. Square root of 81 is 9. Did it work? Yes, so my answer is 81. There's literally one like that on the test for 10 points. We're going to cross off number 3. So let's look at number 4. So again, we need to get our radical alone. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and now I have x plus a square root of x plus 7, x minus 5. And it's ready because the radical is alone. So we're going to square both sides. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. On this side, I'm going to double distribute. So I get x squared minus 5x minus 5x plus 25. And remember, we can combine the middle two. So we get x squared minus 10x plus 25. Now, because there's a squared, I can't just solve for x, and I need to get the left side to equal 0, or the smaller side. So I'm going to subtract x, and I'm going to subtract 7, which canceled everything on the left. And I get x squared minus 11x plus 18. Yeah. And now I'm ready to factor because it equals 0. So A is 1, B is negative 11, and C is 18. 1 times 18 is 18. B is negative 11. A is 1x. 1x. What multiplies to give me 18 but adds to give me negative 11? It's going to be two negatives. So I get x minus 9 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. Add 9, x equals 9. Add 2, x equals 2. And now we need to check them. So my original equation has an x on both sides. So square root x is 9 plus 7. Outside has a plus 5. And this should equal x. What's my x that I just plugged in? 9. Does it equal 9? So this one works. And let's try the other one. Does it equal 2? So that one does not. So we are going to put our answer that worked in fancy brackets and our solution that did not in parentheses, our extraneous solution. Okay, on this one I have a cube root, but I need it alone. How do I get it alone? Minus 3 on both sides. So I get the cube root of 12x plus 4 equals what? 1 minus 3 is negative 2. How do I get rid of a cube root? Cube both sides. Cube root cancels the cube, and I get 12x plus 4 equals, well, you don't even have to do that in your head. You get negative 8. And now, do I have an x squared? No, so there's no factoring. We just need to get x alone. So what do I need to do? Minus 4 on both sides. And I get 12x equals negative 12. Divide by 12, and I get x equals negative 1. Now, to do cube root in this calculator, you're going to hit math for 12 times negative 1 plus 4 plus 3 should equal positive 1. Did it work? Yes. So in fancy brackets, there's our solution. Okay, on number 6, I want you to realize it equals 0, and I have one that's negative. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to both sides, because don't we want to try to get them both alone? We do not want to double distribute that. Well, what's 0 plus this? Isn't it just the square root of 5x plus 12? Or sorry, minus 12. Now, I have a square root equals a square root. What do I do to get rid of those? Square root cancels the squared, square root cancels the squared, and I get 3x plus 12 equals 5x minus 12. When I have an x on both sides, there's nothing squared, so I don't have to worry about factoring. I like to move my smallest x first, so I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And now I want that 12 to move to that side, so I'm going to add 12 to both sides. And I get 24 equals 2x. And then I'm going to divide by 2, and I get x equals 12. We're going to plug it into the original. So I have the square root of 3. My x is 12, so times 12. A good habit to be in is always to put your x that you're plugging in inside parentheses. Minus the square root of 5 times 12 minus 12. It should equal 0. Does it equal 0? Yes. So 12 is a solution. So here we have a radical that's not alone. So what do I need to do to both sides to get it alone? And I get x plus 4 equals the square root of 5x plus 20. Now what do I do? Square both sides. So to get that, I'm going to come over here. And I get x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. So I get x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals, square root cancels the squared, 5x plus 20. Now, this one has an x squared, so we need to get the side without x squared equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides and subtract 20 from both sides. So now the right side equals 0. And over here I have x squared plus 3x minus 4. And I'm going to factor that. So a is 1. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. B is 3. What multiplies to give me negative 4 but adds to give me 3? It's going to be positive 4 and negative 1. So I have x plus 4 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. Subtract 4, I get x equals negative 4. Add 1, and I get x equals 1. Now, this has an x on both sides, so we're going to have to plug in x on both sides. So on this one, 5 times negative 4 plus 4 gives me negative 16. And on the other side, I have square root 5 times negative 4 plus 20 plus 4 times negative 4. That gives me negative 16. Did it work? Yes. So let's try the 1. Did that one also work? Yes. So I get negative 4 and positive 1. Number 8. My goal is to get the radical alone. So what do I need to move? So I'm going to subtract the 4, and I get cube root of x equals negative 4. How do we get rid of a cube root? You cube it. Cube root cancels a cube, and I get x equals negative 64. So if we were to plug that in, math 4, negative 64 plus 4, did it equal 0? Yes. So negative 64 is my solution. Lots of practice to make sure you get it. So So we need to get our root alone. Now this one is touching, so that's the last number I need to move. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And I get 3 root x equals 15. And now to get rid of this is multiplying, so I'm going to divide. And I get square root of x equals 5. Well, the way I get rid of a square root is to square. And I get x equals 25. This should equal 19, which it did. Therefore, that is a solution.
Are they all just easy?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You always say this?
Yes. So we're going to cube both sides on this one to get rid of the cube roots. They're already both alone on their own side. And we get 5x plus 3 equals 4x minus 2. When I have just x's and no squareds, and I have an x on both sides, I like to move my smallest x first. Keeps my x positive. And we're going to plug it in. That's what the left side equals. That's what the right side equals, and they do match, therefore it is a solution. With those ones. So review of complex numbers. So remember, when we have I to a power, you do get to use your notes on this on this test. So I'm going to pull up my baseball diamond. So we take our exponent and divide it by 4. 198 divided by 4 gives me 49.5. Now remember, that's not part of my answer. That's just telling me where to look on the diamond. So 0.5 tells me what? So this equals -1. So on this one, we're going to do 396 divided by 4. And we get 99, which is a whole number. So I want you to realize that's 0.0. So if we look on our diamond, 0.0 just means it equals 1. Here we have 459, so 459 divided by 4. That gives me 114.75. 0.75 tells me that it's going to be -I. And then 85 divided by 4 gives me 21.25, which tells me to look here, which means it just equals I. There are 2 like that on your test. Okay, now we go through stuff like day 1. What does squared mean? You write it twice and double distribute. So I'm going to rewrite it. And I'm going to double distribute. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times -3i is -12i. -3i times 4 is -12i. Now, -3 times -3 is +9. I times I is I squared. So I have these like terms, which gives me -24i. I'm going to bring down my 16. What does I squared equal? And it's multiplying because there's no plus or minus in between. Well, 9 times -1 is -9. 16 minus 9 is 7, so I get 7 minus 24i. Same concept on number 16. Five times 5 is 25. 5 times -6i is -30i. So negative 6i times 5 is negative 30i. Negative 6i times negative 6i is positive 36i squared. The middle two combine. And remember, this gives us times negative 1, which if I rewrite, gives me minus 36. 25 minus 36 is negative 11. And remember, your number with I goes second, not first. So don't write negative 60i minus 11. Now these two look a little different, but do not make them hard. The square root of negative 1 is just I, so I'm going to rewrite this as I. This has a plus in front, so the parentheses are not needed. Now this is a negative, so I do have to distribute that, and that becomes a minus 5. And then here becomes a plus 2i because I distributed that negative. And now I'm just going to combine like terms. So I'm going to start with my numbers without I. I have positive 9 minus 5, which is 4. And then I have I plus 4i plus 2i. Well, 1 plus 4 is 5 plus 2 is 7. That's it. So same concept here. There's nothing in front of this parentheses, so we don't need it. Now this is minus square root of negative 1, which is I. And then again, there's no negative or number in front, so we don't need it. And we're going to combine like terms. 6 plus 3 is 9. 7i minus 6i. Well, 7i. 7 minus 1 minus 6 equals what? 0, so it cancels and our answer is just 9. Here we're going to just distribute. So negative 5i times 5 is negative 25i. Negative 5i times positive 4i is negative 20, and that was I twice, so I squared. I squared just means times negative 1. 2 negatives makes a. So this becomes positive 20. So I get 20 minus 25i. Because remember, your number without I goes first. So let's try that again. 4i times 2 is 8i. 4i times negative 8i. 4 times 8 is what? That's what I thought. Okay. Negative 32i squared. Well, that gives me 8i minus 32 times negative 1. 2 negatives makes a. So I end up getting 32 plus 8i because that's a positive 8. Here, we have something, think of PEMDAS. You have to handle your exponent first. So I need to square this first. So I get 2 minus I. 2 minus I. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative I is negative 2i. Negative I times 2 is negative 2i. And negative times a negative is a positive I squared because it was I twice. So I'm going to bring that over here. And I'm going to simplify it. So I have 4. Well, that gives me what? Negative 4i. And what's I squared? So plus negative 1. Well, 4 plus negative 1 is just 3. And now I can distribute it just like number 19 and 20. So I get 9i minus 12i squared, which gives me 9i minus 12 times negative 1. Well, that gives me positive 12, so I get 12 plus 9i. Last one, there's nothing in front, but there's no symbol in between, which means I'm double distributing. So 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times negative 6i is negative 12i. 3i times 4 is positive 12i. 3i times negative 6i, well, a positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 6 is 18, and I times I is I squared. What happens in the middle? They cancel. So I get 8 minus 18, well, I squared is negative 1. 2 negatives makes a, what's 8 plus 18? So my answer is just 26.